Thank you for joining me. The Introit for Sunday, November 15th is from Psalm 143. Hear my prayer, O Lord. Give ear to my pleas for mercy. In your faithfulness, answer me. In your righteousness, enter not into judgment with your servant. For no one living is righteous before you. I remember the days of old. I meditate on all that you have done. I ponder the work of your hands. I stretch out my hands to you. My soul thirsts for you like a parched land. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. Let your good spirit lead me on level ground. For your name's sake, O Lord, preserve my life. In your righteousness, bring my soul out of trouble. The theme of this Psalms seems to follow that of pleading. The psalmist is pleading with God to show him mercy. Now, when you plead, usually you are at your wit's end and there are no other options. When one pleads, they usually do so to one who has power and the ability to do something about the problem. Have you ever pleaded with God to act on your behalf? Perhaps there was a health-related issue. Maybe it was a situation involving a family member and trouble they got themselves into. Because we trust God, we bring before Him our troubles and concerns because we know that He has the power to do something about it. However, if we dig into this intro a little more, it seems like the psalmist is pleading for God to show him mercy because of something he has done. The psalmist says, enter not into judgment with your servant. It seems like he made a mistake and sinned against God. He's asking God to show him mercy, not judgment. What are some responses that we can have when we sin against God? There are a number of responses that we can have. Perhaps we try to justify ourselves before God. God, it wasn't that bad. There are others who do things far worse than that. Or perhaps we close in on ourselves. We retreat from the presence of God because we feel guilty or we feel shame. The psalmist does the opposite of those things. He doesn't retreat in on himself. He doesn't try to justify himself. Instead, the psalmist pleads for mercy. He asks for forgiveness. One of the worst things we can do after we sin is distance ourselves from God. After we sin, the best thing to do is to get on our knees and ask for forgiveness and mercy. And this desire for forgiveness leads the psalmist to tell God that he thinks on and remembers the great works that God has done. He knows that God forgives. He remembers the faithfulness of God, and because he knows that God has already done great things, he also knows that God will continue to do great things. The psalmist goes on to say, I stretch out my hands to you. My soul thirsts for you like a parched land. This is the act of trusting. Because the psalmist remembers the great and wonderful deeds of God, because he knows God, he also knows that his sincere and repentant heart will not be turned away. And this is the great reminder, because the things that might prevent us from reaching out to God, shame over what we've done, and perhaps even a desire to bury it and just not remember it anymore, that does not apply. When we reach out to God with a sincere and repentant heart, we will not be left hanging. Instead, we let God shape our lives and our actions. We get to a point where when we sin, we recognize that sin and we ask God to show us mercy. And that's the wonderful thing about those who trust in Jesus. Instead of receiving punishment and judgment, we receive forgiveness. God will not turn away those who repent and ask him for forgiveness. Thank you for joining me.